Hey everyone, thanks for all for coming. My name is Richard, and I'm the founder of Iterative Ventures, a Web3 VC. Now, before I get started, I wanted to just thank the Bu Zhi DAO team as well as the affiliate partners for making this happen. I know the team has been working tremendously hard to make this event happening, and I'm so, just from the bottom of my heart, impressed how well this is coordinated. So thanks again to the team and the affiliated partners. Now, to get started, hopefully, if the last conversation haven't gotten you sufficiently scared enough, well, hopefully this will. But we will hopefully also provide a solution to that, or a glimmer of hope. So this is what this conversation is about. So to get started, now, as I introduce myself, my name is Richard. I will hand it off to Kang and then to Jarvett and Jordan to introduce themselves. So take it away, Kang.
Okay, so I'm Kang from CertiK. Really a great pleasure to be invited to join this panel, and I really love to visit the city. So CertiK is the leading Web3 security company. We are probably the largest auditor in this field in terms of number of customers and also in terms of number of audits globally. And not only we do auditing, we also do overall, we look at all the security aspect of the Web3 projects, including threat from Web2. I'm taking the role at CertiK as their Chief Security Officer, and I supervise their product and service.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jarvett. I have roughly about 25 years of experience in cybersecurity. So I founded TBW Cert back to 1997, spoke in DevCon back in 2001, and my speech triggered one of the biggest, worm in 2000s. So that's called Code Red, right? Wow. So that's my research. No, that's not my exploit. That's not my fault. Anyway, okay. So yeah. So I just joined in blockchain for 6 months. I joined this Chainalysis. This company is doing data analytics for blockchain. So it can be used for law enforcement to trace the fund, or for financial institutes, they can use our data analytics to filter the transaction before it happens. Right. Nice to meet you guys.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us here today. It's really exciting to be a part of this event. And a special thank you to the organizers for inviting us. My name is Jordan Forssman. I'm the COO of Cybavo. I'm also roughly 15 years in cybersecurity. I joined a small startup here in Taiwan in 2006, and we were acquired by a US public company. We were doing a lot of sort of advanced malware analysis, things like that. Then got into blockchain through that. And right now at Cybavo, what we do is we build what we call a secure digital asset management platform. So you've just heard a talk about wallets and how there are different strategies for individuals to keep their assets secure. We take that and we raise that to the enterprise level. How do we help enterprises keep their assets secure, and how do they effectively and securely manage all the different types of transactions that you'll see at the enterprise level, whether it's exchanges, custodians, banks, financial institutions, NFT marketplaces. They all have different needs and different use cases, and so we've built a digital asset management platform that fundamentally helps them secure their private keys and then also elevate certain operational activities that allow them to do the tasks they need to do specific to their business. We've recently been acquired by a company called Circle, based out of the States. They are the sole issuer of, I would say, the world's most trusted stablecoin, USDC.
Thank you all for coming to join this panel. Now, before we get started onto some of the bread and butter of this topic, I just have a little story to share. As you can see, some of these guys have extensive experience coming into this industry. And it feels like years, right, coming into this industry in a matter of months, right? So, for example, once you step into this industry, just for a few months, your friends will start reaching out to you, asking you, hey, are you reaching out to me for money, right? It happened to me. There are guys who reached out and saying that, hey, this profile, is that you, right? Is that you who's asking me for money, right? And that's just a small subset of the problems, right? Obviously, every day we see hacks happening. There are militarized groups, right, from rogue states that are asking for funds, et cetera. I don't know if you guys remember the Harmony hack. I mean, that just happened back in September, right? It feels like years ago. That drained $100 million, right, through Tornado Cash, et cetera, et cetera. And that's just a small set of the problems, et cetera. So this is the reason why this topic is incredibly important. Today, we're going to be talking about what are the problems that these experts see, and what are some of the ways to be on the watch for these kind of problems. So to get started, now we'll go around the table here. Kang, from your perspective, what do you see as kind of the top priority and top problems that you see right now?
Well, first, like I will say, there are just so many incidents, right? So security, there's really lots of problems. But go back to the number one, I will say, I assume lots of people read RAC News, right? Now, on RAC News, they will list, all the historical event or recent event. And I think mostly, if you look at their, list of the ranking the incident, the number one, the top one being listed are projects not being audited. I'm not, I work for CertiK. Of course, I, hope people come to CertiK to do the audit. But lots of time, it's really happened is because the project, the developer or the owner, they did not pay enough attention. They don't even bother to get anyone to do the audit. So I think that's probably, from our perspective, the owner or the project developer really need to have the conscious of the security, need to have security in their mind, and even hopefully at the beginning of their project design. Then when they develop the project or before they deploy or even after they deploy, they should really have people check their implementation to see whether there are common problem being made. So that will be, I will say, the number one challenge. But there are really lots of other challenges. I will save all this to the other speakers, but we can come back to that later.
Absolutely, thank you. And Jarvett, would you mind sharing your perspective, especially with counterparty risks, et cetera? What do you see?
Right, so what I see is like Web3 is like a Wild West. It's a new world to us. Just like 25 years ago, we just started Web 1.0, and everybody tried to make money from that. So by the time there's no Google, no Amazon yet, but everybody tried to start their business. And security is not one of the priorities. Right. So 25 years now, we are exploring the new boundary. So I cannot say that we can fully understand the threat landscape on Web3. However, we have better we are equipped with better knowledge, better tool, and get ready for that. But however, bad news is Web3. Actually, the whole infrastructure is based on Web2, right? So we share a lot of problems, vulnerability, and security challenges, right? That's something we can start with. Yeah. Also, just share one story. Like TBW Search just announced one advisory last week. There's a APT group focusing on venture capitals over Telegram, so they can share some their new projects, their plans, their competitive analysis, even the price table for you. When you double-click that attachment, your computer get infected, and probably your money is gone. Right? That's something we can discuss today.
Thank you, Jordan.
So my perspective is really focused on how do we effectively secure private keys, right? That's, I think, one of the most fundamental primitives in dealing with the Web3. Your private key is what controls your public chain address. Your public chain address is your identity, but it's also the thing that controls your funds and your balances, right, to an extent. And so securing control over that private key, how it's used, is the most important fundamental thing we need to get right. If we can't get that right, we can't build any kind of scalable business. We can't build any kind of scalable infrastructure on Web3 infrastructure. So what we focus on is how do we elevate simple private key management that you heard earlier about individual wallets, but how do we elevate that to an organization that is not only transacting P2P, but is in transacting with smart contracts under various different conditions, that has payments rails, that's trying to execute very, very complex transactions that involve multiple parties. And what are the security controls that we need to build and integrate to do that effectively? One of the biggest, I would say, problems with the industry at the institutional level is that blockchain private key management right now is built for individuals. Bitcoin was designed to help individuals transact over the web in a trustless manner. And so if you lose your private key, you lose your funds. Sorry for you, but nobody cares, right? It's a different story when you're talking about an organization. The organization owns the funds. It's the organization's assets. So who should be controlling that private key? It can't just be one individual. If you look at traditional asset management, you have very succinct protocols that guide, as a transaction risk or value increases, you need more and more people to have oversight and to approve this transaction. Now, typically in traditional finance, the people that have the authority to transact with the company's funds are the executive or the finance team, sometimes the legal team, right? But these folks really do not have any kind of cybersecurity knowledge or training. Most often, they don't even know what a private key is, right? And so what we've seen is that organizations, they push this responsibility onto the engineering teams, cybersecurity teams, IT infrastructure teams, and say, well, you guys understand this, so you take care of it. The problem there is that if you give them the private keys, now they have the private keys. They could use that privilege to steal the company's funds. And we've seen it happen over and over again in the industry. Quadriga CX is a great example. There's a Netflix movie about it where the CEO was the only one who had the private keys. He died. $160 million got locked in his wallet. So what we've tried to do is figure out, and what we've done is built a cryptographic architecture that effectively separates the rights to use the private keys from the responsibility of keeping it secure, so that we can maintain the authority of transacting with the company's assets with the right people, the executive, the finance, the legal, and then also give the freedom to the engineering teams, the IT infrastructure teams, to build the necessary things they need to build to have a prolific, scalable business on-chain. And that's what we try and deal with.
Thank you, Jordan. Now, with the audience here, a lot of us are developers and investors. I was wondering if we can dive in just more specifically about what recommendation you would have, in regard to some of these hacks. Could be phishing, could be DDoS, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll start with Kang, since you're the security expert, chief security expert here.
Okay, so for developer and project owner, I will again repeat what I said earlier. You really should have security in your design in early stage, right? And what that mean, right? So you really should start to think about what are the potential threats. Are you potentially worried about someone explore your smart contract, or go back to what Jordan mentioned, that where are going to store your key? Who has the access to manage or upgrade your project? You should have all those things lined up, planned, right? Now, I understand for lots of projects, it's probably impractical for them to have a dedicated security team to work on this, because small startup project, they only have a few people, right? So that's the time you should just again consult for the special security company. Again, not have to be CertiK, right? So to really come to look at the potential threats, you can also certainly ask for once you start develop, you can ask for auditing company like CertiK to become a partner to help you to watch for your code development. Try to avoid common mistakes, right? And at the end, even you feel like everything is you follow the secure software development cycle, you thought about all the threat. But you should also think about maybe, again, do the auditing on your tokenomic model. For example, lots of time we have a scam like rug pull is because because the owner has a bad intention, right? If you are a project you really want to do the good project, you're not just try to create a scam, right? You can also do the the KYC, do the proof about your model and your project along all in the auditing process. So I would suggest, again, repeating myself, just think about security threat in the very beginning and start to engage with some security company as a partner.
Go ahead, Jarvett.
Right. So for us, So there's like two topics from my perspective. First is as an individual, we have activity on Metaverse or Web3. The first thing is to understand your counterparty, because you have to understand who you are dealing with before you transfer your fund, right? So you have to make sure from the other side of the table is not a terrorist or not a criminal, not a scammer, of course, yeah. And as a company, you probably want to protect your customer, right? So again, so make sure that your customer is not, because there's a lot of like regulatory requirement from the government authorities to make sure that the flow of cryptocurrency is clean, right? So as a company, you have to make sure that your transaction is not illicit, right? So it's not involved with sanctions, not involved with terrorists. So from that perspective, like Chainalysis can help our customer like to understand, because we are doing a lot of like analyze of all the transactions on the blockchain, right? We can give you more information who you are dealing with. So are they terrorists? Are they ransomware group? We give you like the information, and also make sure that if you are a financial institute, your customer is totally comply with the government regulation and policies. That's something like we can assist our customer with.
I'm gonna echo first what Kang said, right? So the way I see it is that there's three ways to look at it. One is developers, right? If you're trying to build a project or a product on chain, normally it's going to be some kind of DeFi or smart contract functionality. You need to understand that you have to keep this thing secure. I think one of the biggest problems we've seen at that level is that we've got a lot of folks coming out of finance industry and saying, well, I know how to do, I know how to build synthetic derivatives contracts and things like that. I'm just going to learn Solidity, which is not hard to learn, and spin up some smart contracts with absolutely no thought to security, right? Because it's not a concept that you have to deal with as a financial trader, or normally if you're working in some kind of big bank, there's a huge security team that's taking care of things for you. So the first is to understand that everything you do on chain is permanent and you can't reverse it, right? So you have to understand the need for security. You have to understand that if you don't have the skills, you need to be talking to somebody who can educate you. Quite frankly, we have in Web2 security a lot of really robust security models and mechanisms that do the job just perfectly fine. And many of the problems and issues that we see in Web3, certainly at the smart contract level, it's the same stuff, man. There's nothing new. Reentrancy attacks, we've seen that in Web2, right? Just in a different format, but it's the same concept. So we know how to deal with these things. We're just ignoring the problem, I feel. So the first thing is that understand that you need to do that from developing smart contract security. Obviously, understanding how to deal with private keys and managed keys. There are different wallet types. They serve different functions. They serve different transaction types. Understand how to get that right. So that's for your developers and your engineers that are building products. For your investors, make sure that the people you're investing understand the first point, right? So I think that's a very easy conversation to have. Are they aware of security? Do they understand the importance and the issues that they need to deal with? And then the third class is really sort of, I would say, the retail investors, folks that are trying to get into the space, trying to learn it. I would say it's very difficult to learn about all the security stuff if you're a layperson. It takes years and years and years to understand all of these concepts. The first thing you need to understand is that if you, I'm going to say it again, not your keys, not your crypto, right? That's the first thing. If you are putting your money somewhere with somebody who's promising you some kind of unrealistic return, you're probably going to get scammed, right? You're probably going to lose those funds. So think about it in terms of real money. If I was to come up to you on the street and promise you, a 25% return in a year based on how much NTD you're going to give me, you would not give me that money, right? So do your research in terms of like understand that unrealistic gains are unrealistic for a reason, right? Don't be greedy. But then realize that when you are interacting with these third-party companies, that you are giving up your funds, right? And if they are bad actors, just like FTX, the world thought that they were great, but they were bad actors doing bad things, and a lot of people lost a lot of money. So just be very, very careful. Don't be greedy, and really spend the time to learn about the primitives and the fundamentals of this space before you put your money anywhere.
So Kang, you mentioned threat a lot, and so obviously I'm coming in as a layman. So could you elaborate a little bit about threat? How do experts like you think about threat?
Well, first, I think threat can come from lots of places, right? Like in terms of programming, there are like a list of a common mistake. For example, you should not just simply trust the input. Like you need to validate the input. Those, just one example, right? And the threat can also, you should also think about who is potentially use your, system. Who is a user? Can that user do something not as you expect? So anything that you make assumption, you need to make sure that assumption stands. So each time you have an assumption, that's usually turned to a threat. You should also know like where your system run, like who is going to host. Are you using any RPC node? How much do you rely on those? So then look at that stack where what things can go wrong, right? Now again, I highly suggest if you're not in this area, get someone in the security, from security domain to tell you what are the potential threats, because usually things go bad because there are something unexpected happen. And the hackers, their job, or their career, like the effort, attacking, they are just try to find those assumptions you made. Okay, you never saw this thing can be called twice. Well, that happened. That's the reentry attack, right? So really, threat is broken assumptions in general. Okay, and you need some expert to come to tell you, or at least take a look, right? So that will be my quick answer on that.
Got it. So before you make any actions, you should check with yourself about the assumptions that you're making before doing it.
Well, that's just okay. I would say that's too simplified. I think even before you start do the actions, start think. Okay, here's my design. Get someone look at the design to say, are you making some assumption you sometimes don't even know, right? That's what we call auditing or review, right? And in fact, in the Web2 field, if you look at the large enterprise, when they do software development, there are secure development cycle looking at this. I'm not saying Web2 is doing this thing perfectly, because the reason they have it there because it's been developed for so long. Web3 field actually gave credit to the Web3 field. We actually have more attention. I think we should have more, but again, I think in general, project already put more attention on security compared to in general to the Web2 field. But Web2 field, the industry itself has already evolved in a way so they have the security design already in there by default, and we are in that process in the Web3 field.
That makes sense. And Jordan, you wanted to add something?
No, I was just going to say, again, in Web3 and in sort of enterprise software development, you start with what we call threat modeling, right? When you have a design, you have an architecture, and you say, okay, these are all the different components, how they're interacting, how they're working together, where are the potential threats, right? What are the assumptions that I've made that could potentially, be used against me? And so there is a robust existing framework to deal with this in terms of threat modeling.
That makes sense. Thank you. And Jarvett, I do have a question for you. For Chainalysis, how do you guys think about counterparties? How do you guys think about the risk from your perspective?
Right. So the concept of counterparty check is more like in Web2 world, we have a list of a blacklist. We maintain a blacklist of the IP address your computer have conversation with. So it's very similar in Web3. Basically, our identity is our own wallet address. So we monitor all the transaction and try to identify all the service cluster, all the entities have activity on blockchain, and try to give a label. So when somebody is dealing with you, if you check our database, we will tell you, okay, this is FTX, that is Binance, or this is a hacker group from North Korea, right? So before you run your transaction, you can have a peek regarding to the counterparty you are dealing with. But in the meantime, there's limitation, right? Because it is very easy. There's no cost to create new wallet in Web3. But the IPv4 resource is very limited in real world, right? So So again, like criminal is evolving, we are exploring the edge of the world. So we'll figure out later. Yeah, but however, in the meantime, at least we give our customer a tool. If something goes wrong, law enforcement is using all over the world is using Chainalysis to like backtrace the money. And again, they trace the money. They can seize the fund. They can get identity of the criminal and help us to secure our world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jarvett. And you touched upon the fact that we need to figure out a lot of things. So I wanted to ask you guys, all of you, how do you see the next few years evolving, and how does that parallel Web 2? Starting with you, Kang.
So there are actually, I see a lot of similarity in terms of the development on the Web 3 and on the Web 2, although like Web 3 is evolving much faster. But just I gave one example here. Think about the user interface. Here, the audience probably are very young to know like what the early days the browser looked like, and when the e-commerce just starts booming, right? The Web 2 security become a huge issue. So that's why we have HTTPS, SSL, or certificate. I'm not sure how many of you look at the green lock on your browser and then check. When you go to a site, sometime browser will tell you, oh, are you really sure this site looks fishy? It's really dangerous, right? They give you a red a page. Now that actually on Web 2 field, it takes actually a couple years to get there. In the very beginning, we have pop-up, ask you okay, right? We have different type of design, and it's gradually get to the current stage. I think it's more robust, and people know when, in general, we go to a trusted site, when they're not, right? I see similar thing happen on the Web 3 and on the wallet design, for example, right? Now, in the early version, when I play with, when you do a transaction, I only see some of the address, right? There's nothing, no warning, but I start to see some of the wallet address start building warning of phishing detection, all those, right? And gradually, I think as a user, they will able to get more information. For example, Chainalysis might show that this is actually, you are interacting with a really dangerous address. Are you really sure you want to proceed? Or maybe even like, if we have some wallet, might automatically just block that. You got to do something special to move on, right? But right now, I don't think in general we're there, right? Right now, people are still easily being phished, right? So I see there's also similarity in the sense that just using that as one example, we see that UI design improvement, right? And it takes maybe a decade in the Web 2. Hopefully, we take a few months or a year in the Web 3 field to fix that. Similar thing in the I would say the auditing process. I think maybe in that sense the Web 3 is doing better now. Like I think there are more projects are getting involved to do the code auditing. I think the percentage-wise, probably higher than the Web 2 field, I would say, right? But still, I think we need to really, hopefully get to like 100%, get to a default action, right? That's already a default, like a developing the process in the large enterprise, the secure development cycle. That's already like really a default process. Hopefully that also become a common practice in the Web 3 field. Right? I just use these two examples.
Right. So to me, like all the Web 2.0 concepts still apply on Web 3. Right, so you have to secure your operating system. You have to secure your browser, because fundamentally that's where you are running all your transactions. You have to make sure that your app on your phone is authentic. It's not from any like unknown third-party shop. Right, so this is to secure your infrastructure. So currently, like security guys are trying to enforcing a concept called zero trust. That means trust no one. You have to assume like everything can go wrong and can be harmful, right? So be very aware of what you are doing. But in Web3 world, I'm seeing this future like for Kang, his company stands the activity you get involved on Web3, right? So for Jordan, is who you are, your identity. And Chainalysis stands for your counterparty who get involved with your activities. So these are like the future, because we are exploring, again, we are pushing our world into the edge, right? So when we're doing that, we have to like be very aware like what you are doing, keep your identity safe, and know that the guys you are dealing with is trustworthy. That's it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All of that. I think all of the Web2 security issues that we face today are going to remain there. They're not going to somehow magically disappear because it's Web3. We're still accessing Web3 via Web2 infrastructure, and so all of those issues will remain the same. There are now additional issues and challenges around private key management, around smart contract security, which, again, as I've said, we have in the Web2 world, we have very good security models to deal with them. We just need to elevate the community to be more familiar with this stuff and pay more attention. And I see that happening. I see that happening at some of the largest enterprises in the world that are now starting to adopt blockchain technology in various forms. But more and more, we're seeing expressed interest and floating of Web3 technology to help existing enterprises, whether they're Web2 or Web1, leverage the blockchain to enhance customer engagement through things like NFTs. Right? How do I engage with my customers? How do I learn more about them? How do I craft unique, delightful experiences specifically to them based on this digital identity that they have, which is their address or their private key or their wallet. The second, obviously, work for a stablecoin company is payments, right? We're seeing huge opportunities in the payments world by leveraging blockchain. If you think of traditional payments through credit card networks and so on, merchants will only get settlement in T+3, sometimes T+4, right? I've had the transaction on Friday, I only get the money the next week, Tuesday, right? With blockchain, it's instant, right? And it's much, much lower cost. You don't have 6 or 7 counterparties that are each taking a percentage on that transaction. And of course, that opens up novel, financial services and solutions that we can deliver to consumers. So in the next 5 years, I see all of that happening at an accelerated pace. And I see a lot of the solutions that all of us here today are building being incorporated into that, so that we can have consumer confidence in the blockchain, and hopefully that in most cases consumers wouldn't even know that this is actually a blockchain transaction happening in the background. It should all be smooth and seamless and transparent.
Thank you all. As promised, there is hope, so don't lose hope. Thank you all for coming to the panel today. Please give a round of applause for the speakers today. And please come to find them afterwards if you want to dive in deeper. Thank you.